Hey, how's it going, everyone? This is Lucas here. Welcome to my studio. Welcome to my YouTube channel. We're super happy to have you here. Today, by popular demand, I'm going to run through the most commonly used cables and adapters that you're going to find if you're a musician or just a music enthusiast, or if you're trying to start a home studio, project studio. Chances are you will probably need most of these, or you want to know what they are and what they do and what they're used for. So I'm going to go through all that. If you'd like to follow along on my website or just prefer reading it, you should go to my website because it's literally just a blog article that basically talks about pretty much everything that we're going to discuss in detail. So that should be cool if you prefer reading it. And definitely check out the description below because I'll put links to buy all of these things through Amazon. But if you are able to support a local music store or even like Sweetwater or whatever other music site, feel free to just get them there as well. Alright, so we're just going to jump right into this. So the first one is, I have this second camera set up here so we can zoom in, but this is the 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch adapter. So you've probably seen one of those or used it before if you produce music, but these are commonly used to connect your headphones to audio interfaces that have 1/4 inch jacks. So this big connector is the 1/4 inch tip, and then right in here is where you'd plug in an 1/8 inch cable, like the same connector that you would see on an aux cable or on your headphone cable. So not always, but a lot of headphones used 1/8 inch. Some of them just are 1/4 inch, so that works well for using with interfaces as well. But here is the 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch adapter. These always get lost. I recommend the gold ones. The cheaper ones off Amazon can be really flimsy and they break and they're super inconvenient. So I recommend getting not only a few of them, but actually get a decent quality one. Alrighty, the next one is the dreaded Apple dongle. So this is the Lightning to 1/8 inch adapter. So this end is the Lightning. Not a lot of people refer to it as Lightning. People just call it like the Apple iPhone cable or whatever, but this is a Lightning adapter that connects to your phone, and this is the 1/8 inch that connects to your aux cable. So this is the most frequently lost item and most frequently forgotten, and shame on Apple for this even existing, but it does exist. You should have one if you have a studio, because someone's going to come by and be like, hey, where's the aux? And then they're not going to be able to connect it to their phone, because aux cables are usually just 1/8 inch cables and don't have those built in. So yeah, I just had to mention that one. Next, I just lumped a few different things in this category. So these are Apple Thunderbolt adapters. Sorry, not USB-C. These are Apple Thunderbolt adapters. This one actually is USB-C. We're going to talk way more about that in detail in a second. But if you have a laptop that's older than 2015, you've probably used these, and you might even have more than one. But basically, these connect to MacBook Pros that just have Thunderbolt 3 or USB-C connectors. And this one, for example, I think is the one to get because it has USB, HDMI, and Thunderbolt port. This one's a Thunderbolt 2 to a Thunderbolt 3. And this one's just one USB to USB-C. So basically, if you have one of those new Apple computers that only has Thunderbolt ports, you're going to need these to connect any other peripherals. That's super lame. Luckily, Apple's going away from that because I realized everyone's been complaining about that for forever. But these are super important to have and know about, and honestly just leave in your backpack if you're going to a session anywhere or doing music elsewhere, because you might forget it and it's a huge hassle to not have these, and they're unfortunately very expensive. Lastly, so here we have a 1/4 inch headphone splitter. So this is also something else that I just leave in my backpack if I'm ever going to sessions, sometimes even at a studio or like at someone's home studio or whatever. You can plug in one side to the audio interface and you get 2 headphones that you can connect. So it's super useful if the interface does not have 2 headphone inputs, which is really inconvenient. Alright, so next we're going to be talking about the main part of this video, and that is audio cables. So the first audio cable that we're going to talk about, which is probably the most commonly used by hobbyists, is the 1/8 inch cable. And sometimes people refer to this as the aux cable. These are the ones with the small tips, and these are used to connect your phones to your car speakers. They're also useful to connect laptops to speakers and things like that. So I like to refer to them as 1/8 inch cables, not aux cables, but it's just kind of the colloquial term. This is also sort of a lumped category because there's a few different types of these that I use and I really recommend having. One is the extension, so it'll be a female 1/8 to male 1/8 inch. So essentially you can use it as like a headphone extension, which is super useful in the studio. It's already wired up here, so that's why I'm not showing you that on the camera. This one's just a regular male to male 1/8 inch. And then another one that's super useful to have is 1/8 inch to breakout 1/4 inch cable, which will allow you to connect like a laptop or something to your audio interface and record that. So all three of those are super useful to have. That's our 1/8 inch cable. Next is the instrument cable. So sometimes people refer to them as guitar cables, and they're actually more formally called TS cables, and sometimes old school people will call them patch cables as well. But this is a cable you connect your guitar or bass to an amplifier. You also connect guitars to your DI boxes or audio interfaces. So you do not want to use these to connect like speakers or keyboards or anything else. These are specifically used for guitar. They're called TS because, as you can see here, there's the tip and the sleeve, so you can see one ring on this particular type of cable. Sometimes people confuse them with two other cables that we're going to discuss in a minute, the TRS and the speaker cable, so we're going to demystify all of that. But this is the guitar cable. Next, we have our TRS cable, which also will sometimes be called balanced 1/4 inch cables. But really the most descriptive term is TRS because you have tip, ring, and sleeve. So you can see these two lines right here will help you identify this cable. These are commonly used to connect keyboards, studio equipment like studio monitors, speakers, things like that. So these are the easiest ones to identify just because of these two lines here. And just as a quick tip, if you have any music equipment that you're confused about, make sure you read the user manual about it, like on the actual device. Sometimes it'll also designate what the jacks are on the back of the device, but it'll usually say, connect balanced TRS cables to this jack or something like that. So these cables are very commonly used, and you have to have them if you have a studio. Next cable, which is very confusing to some people, are speaker cables. So here's a speaker cable. I haven't even opened it. It literally says speaker on it, so that's useful. But basically, these are specifically used to connect guitar amplifiers to speakers. So you do not want to use any other type of cable for that, as you could mess up your amplifier. And these are not interchangeable with guitar cables or TRS cables. So these are specifically for connecting guitar speaker cabinets. And you can sort of tell them apart because they're a thicker gauge, but the best way is to really just see what it says on the actual cable. And I believe there's a way to check if you unscrew these, but I'm not going to go into too much detail on that. But chances are, if you have a speaker cable, it's most likely because you're a guitar player and you need to connect them to your amplifier. So just double check you're using the right cable for that, because you could damage your amplifier if you use the wrong cable. So that's a speaker cable. Now the last one for this section is the XLR cable. So here's the XLR male end, and here's the XLR female end. So these are sometimes referred to as mic cables, but they're not just used for microphones. They are very commonly used to connect your microphone to either your interface or your mic preamp. But these are actually also used to connect studio monitors, speakers, DI boxes, sometimes even keyboards, guitar modelers, various audio equipment. And these are one of the easiest to identify because of the three prongs here, and it's easy to identify the jacks that they plug into as well. Although sometimes audio interfaces will have combi jacks, which can take XLRs and 1/4 inches. But yeah, so it should be pretty obvious when these are required, and sometimes they'll be referred to as balanced XLR cables. So yeah, these are pretty much, if you have a studio or if you're a musician, you definitely need to have at least one of these. Not even just if you're a singer and recording vocals. These are very useful for connecting keyboards and speakers and all kinds of things. All right, so our third section of this is actually going to be computer-related cables, which surprisingly is the most confusing section, I would say, for people. So the first one, which is a little bit obvious, but I have to discuss it. This is a lightning cable. So these are used to charge your iPhones. One end is a lightning port, and the other end is USB, and that goes into this to charge iPhone cables, and it'll also connect them to like CarPlay and things like that. These cables are like some of the third-party ones that you can buy off Amazon or whatever are really sketchy and won't work for CarPlay and things like that, so I don't recommend using the cheap knockoff ones. Unfortunately, the Apple and Belkin ones are more expensive, but it is what it is. It's also more expensive to get longer ones. These are usually so short, they're really annoying. But yeah, so that's our lightning cable. A lot of people don't know that it's specifically called a lightning cable. They refer to it just as like an iPhone cable or whatever, which is fine, but that's what the connector is called. Next one is USB, which is surprisingly the most complicated and confusing section, I would say. But this cable right here, so I chose this cable to use for the demo because this one is what most people are going to be using to connect like an interface or a MIDI keyboard, those kinds of basic music peripherals. So this one actually is USB-A and USB type B, which is what this one looks like. Actually, this is the type of cable that you'd be using to connect like a printer and things like that. Now, to add confusion, there's also a USB 3.0, which is a newer one. There's also USB-C, and then there's a few other ones called USB Mini, Micro, that kind of thing, which we won't really go over in too much detail, but if you would like to go to my website and pull up this article, there is a diagram that has basically like a nice view of all the different ones. But essentially what you need to know for music is that most things are going to use these USB A and B cables. But if you're, for example, on the market for like a newer hard drive or something, a USB 3.0 would probably be smart because it transfers data faster. And then there's also USB-C, which is even newer. And the USB-C situation is the most confusing because there's also something called Thunderbolt 3, which is the Apple branded or like the proprietary Apple version of USB-C, which has additional functionality. So I'm going to talk about both of those in a second. But USB cables, there's a couple different ones. It's a little confusing. Just read your user manual and make sure you know which one you need. And make sure you have the ports for that on your computer or on your USB hub. USB is perfectly good for MIDI peripherals, audio interfaces, a variety of different music peripherals. It's a great protocol. So next one is part of the confusion. So here is a Thunderbolt cable. This is a Thunderbolt 3 cable. There's a couple different types of Thunderbolt cables, but this is the newer one. So all Thunderbolt cables are going to have this lightning bolt. So, and the ports on peripherals too will have a lightning bolt to designate that it is Thunderbolt and not USB-C. So USB-C cable will look the same from this angle, but it will not have a Thunderbolt icon. So, like I was saying, Thunderbolt is Apple proprietary, so what does it let you do? So one specific example of why Thunderbolt is useful is because, for example, my Apollo interface, that's Thunderbolt 3, it actually allows you to daisy chain devices, so you can plug another interface or hard drive or something on into the Apollo. So Thunderbolt will let you daisy chain and power multiple devices. So for example, you can, if you have a Thunderbolt display, the display itself will have another Thunderbolt port that you can plug in another display, or you can plug in another hard drive or something into. So it allows you to daisy chain and power multiple devices through one device. And then the whole thing with the confusion between Thunderbolt 3 and USB-C, if you have a USB-C hard drive, you can totally plug that into a Thunderbolt port. That works, no problem. But if you have a Thunderbolt device, like a Thunderbolt hard drive or a Thunderbolt audio interface, you cannot plug that into a USB-C port. So hopefully that clears up the confusion on that. They look the same from this angle, but Thunderbolt will always have this emblem right here, the lightning bolt. Yeah, so that's the whole spiel on those. Thunderbolt is very commonly used now for audio interfaces. It is not by any means required. There's plenty of amazing interfaces with USB and other protocols, but Thunderbolt 3 is a very good choice now because it's extremely powerful. It's way more powerful than you need, and it's also commonly used for displays and other computer peripherals, and as well as hard drives and stuff, because it has a very fast transfer speed. Now, I should also mention there's a Thunderbolt 2, which I don't have right now because I got rid of all those devices a while back, but it's just a little bit of a thicker version of that, and that works perfectly well and is very commonly used still for hard drives, audio interfaces, and all those kinds of things. So that is worth noting. I should also note that if, let's say you have a laptop that's older, it has Thunderbolt 2 ports, you will not be able to connect Thunderbolt 3 peripherals to an older laptop. However, if you have a newer laptop, if you have a new MacBook Pro that has Thunderbolt 3 ports, you can use a dongle adapter to convert a Thunderbolt 2 peripheral to work with your laptop. So that should be worth noting. You can go backwards or you can't go forwards. And then the last cable that I wanted to do that's computer related, which is kind of funny, but it's actually super important if you have a studio, if you're doing music, is HDMI, which you probably won't confuse with any other cable, but these are used to connect displays, and video game consoles, those kinds of things, which actually are really important if you're doing music. You need a decent display, or some people even use like a TV monitor or something like that. Alright, if you made it this far, I wanted to thank you so much for checking out my video. I hope it was informative. Let me know in the comments if you think I omitted any cables, and if you have any other questions. Again, my name's Lucas. Thanks so much. Check out my channel if you want more stuff related to music production and guitar. Take it easy.